All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Juliana Stachurski. Juliana, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here today.
I'll tell you what, I'm really excited about this as well. And I want to start off by just giving a shout out to Amanda Dake. I don't know how long it's been, maybe about a month ago or so. I ended up putting up this post on Facebook because one of my clients was looking for just a really top-notch copywriter that, and not just any old copywriter, but a copywriter that also had experience in working with nonprofits and stuff. And Amanda, who I know well, commented on that and said, Kevin, you need to talk with Juliana. And so you and I got to have a conversation. I got to know you a little bit, and yes, I certainly connected you with my clients and stuff. But also, I was like, man, we need to do an interview for the podcast. And here we are. And I am just after the conversation we already had. I've really been looking forward to this, Juliana. And so I want to start off. I want to turn it over to you so we can set some context, so we can let our listeners know a little bit about, who you are, who you serve, what you do for your clients, what inspires you most about the work that you get to do and the impact that you're making in this world. And also give us some of the backstory too. And I know I've lumped a lot in there, but I want to just give you a little bit of leeway to just go with what you feel led to share, and we'll just start there.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, I think what I love most about the clients I get to work with is that in a spot in my business where I get to choose clients that are really doing good things. And so my work as a marketer allows me to amplify that good. And I think that's a really important thing these days.
Yeah.
And because of that, I have a wide variety of clients that I work with, but they're all at the same spot in their business. They're doing something that's exciting, something that puts good out there, and oftentimes they've grown rapidly, and they reach a point where they're stuck and they need to do something different. They know that what they got them to that point isn't going to take them to the next level. They've been growing so fast, they haven't maybe been very organized in how they do the things. It's kind of like, just keep it going, keep the money coming in, and we'll figure it out later.
Mm-hmm.
And they're at a spot where now is later.
Mm-hmm.
And they realize that they have a specific need for structure, for systems, for a place where they can create a repeatable process, not only to create the marketing materials, but also to measure what's working and what they should do more of. So it can take them from where they are to where they want to go.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was talking with friends earlier today, and they're like, just tell me exactly what it is that you do. And I like to tell people that I'm on a mission to help businesses combat random acts of marketing.
Okay.
And so we get to go from a business that's doing the things because they heard they ought to do social, or they ought to write emails, or they ought to be doing lots and lots of videos, but they don't understand the how or the why. And those assets don't necessarily plug into a strategy.
Okay.
And after we work together, they still get to produce really great content and share their message, but it's focused because it's tied to a specific plan that has an expected outcome that we can measure. And when you can measure the success of what you're doing, you can make informed decisions and really be in charge of your business and the direction that you want to take it, and how you want to grow, how you want to shape it, and most importantly, how you want to claim your definition in the world. And that's super important.
Yeah, awesome. So how did you get in to doing this kind of work, Juliana?
So I got my very first marketing gig when I was 16, but I didn't realize that it was a marketing gig.
Okay.
I realized this years later. When I was 16, I was a complete nerd. And I was part of the Opera Scholars Program at Seattle Opera. And I got to give opera preview lectures to these guilds. So that's groups of people that are donors. And what that looks like is I would go to the fancy party with a couple of young singers, and I would give the group a preview of the opera that they would be seeing later that week or the next week, talk about history, give a run through of the story. The singers would sing key arias and get people really excited through telling the story of the opera, not only to show up, but also to donate.
Okay.
And when I tied the two together, I realized that by keeping people engaged and then asking them to continue in a way that allows whatever it is that they liked in the first place to happen feels really, really good, because you provide a service to them that there happens to be a value exchange. And in this case, the opera was looking for donations, right? Looking for monies. But I was a kid who geeked out over music and thought it was not a big deal to be like, hey, if you want more of this, don't forget there's a little card for you. Go ahead and fill that out. And we love your support. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
And it was years later where I realized, hey, that actually is marketing.
Yes.
And so from that break when I was 16, I went to school. I did the things. I have a formal background in education and law. I fast forward, I moved to Nashville in 2008 with my family.
Okay.
And I started teaching. I taught LSAT and MCAT prep courses at Vanderbilt University and some other colleges here. And I learned that teachers don't make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And as you and I have discussed, we are proud members of the Big Family Club, which means I have 2 daughters, a 6-pack of sons, and they all enjoy food with their dinner.
Yeah.
And consequently, as they got bigger and ate more, I realized that we needed to do something a little bit different than how I was currently generating revenue. But that experience was super important because it was about 2010, and I was part of the very first cohort of teachers that were doing live online training. So teaching, at the time, we were using a proprietary platform, but teaching live using something similar to Zoom.
Okay.
And that was important because as I made my transition into the world of internet marketing, and specifically into the world of direct response copy and online programs, that background was essential to my success because I already understood how to create a curriculum. I already understood how to deliver to an audience that wasn't sitting in the same room as you. I had already had experience tutoring people remote, for example, and that was an incredible head start to the season I spent building and growing and selling a lot of online programs.
Yeah.
So from that point, moving into a time where I did a lot of just direct response copy, I wrote a lot of very, very successful sales pages and email marketing campaigns. I've got some really fun clients that are doing exceptional work. And it's fun when you read your copy in the wild and you know that your fingerprints are on it, even if your name isn't necessarily on that work.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Because, I mean, for me, people don't necessarily need to know that I'm the one who decided to put those words in that order, right? The people who are reading it need whatever good my client is putting out into the world.
Yeah.
And it's more than enough for me to know when I see something I've written in the wild to be like, I did that.
I did
right?
that. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I know that.
Yep. Yep.
Which is really, really fun. Actually, I'm going to share a really great win with you, which, okay, it was kind of sort of not a win. I did a lot of work for a guy in the wellness space. And a couple of years ago, I decided I needed to get in shape. So, I signed up for the gym and I signed up for all the things. And I was in one of the wellness coaching meetings. And my wellness coach quoted me to myself, but she was quoting the person that I had written for. And I realized, I think that's one of those things. Like living in Nashville, you've made it when you see your CD in the Goodwill bin. There's a prize for that. I think in the copy world, there's a prize for when you have words that you've written given back to you by someone who doesn't necessarily know that you wrote, as good advice you ought to follow.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So there's that. That wasn't. I mean, it was just a very interesting moment of being super excited that it got used in the wild, and also kind of annoying because I had paid this person for advice and they were telling me literally something that I had written. That's okay. Sometimes you just need to hear it from a different source for it to stick, right?
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
It's all good.
Well, I want to, you've done some pretty amazing work for some pretty amazing clients and stuff. What is a result that you have helped one of your clients get that you are just incredibly proud of, Juliana?
Oh man, I am so lucky to work with awesome clients that are doing really, really great things.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm super proud of, because it was kind of difficult to pull off, but we did it, is I have a client who works the multifamily space,
Okay.
and he was able to generate $30 million in 30 minutes because of a presentation that I put together for him.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so I like to say, yes, I helped somebody get 30 million in 30 minutes. But the truth behind that is my client has spent an entire career building a reputation, building a business that is incredible, having a message that matters, and being able to really follow through. So it made my job easy, even working within the constraints that we had to make this presentation,
Yeah.
to put the right words in the right order that would resonate with the right audience.
Yeah.
And that's another important thing.
Yeah.
Like, yes, my words helped him do that, but it's because they were presented to a very curated room of people who were in a position to make that type of investment, who were in a position to make that investment that particular day, or within that time frame, um, and had already expressed a desire to learn this information.
Yeah.
So a lot of the hurdles that we overcome as marketers, like, it had completely been snowplowed, and he was perfectly situated because of his history and reputation and integrity, that when he made that presentation, he was able to get that $30 million yes. And that was super rewarding.
Yeah. What you brought up there, about you serving the right kind of clients, that there is so much power in like right relationships, where he had all of these assets already in place that had been being built up over years, and then you were able to bring your gifts and your talents to the table to be able to help him in a specific situation at a specific time and date, and help in that moment, that because of what both of you had brought to the table, that's what led to the result. That would have never been possible without both of you. You were able to do far more together than either one of you could have possibly done on your own and stuff. And
Absolutely.
what a testament to the power of right relationships. Yeah, no. And I love digging into stories like this, and well, heck, I've been the relationship guy for years. So this is what jazzes me. And so, okay, so now that we've got a little bit of context set, um, I want to dig deeper. I'm gonna reiterate the question for the benefit of our listeners. So, Juliana, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Yes, absolutely. So I actually have two people that are key that I
Okay.
would love to share with you today. And the first person is Ray Edwards. And
Okay.
he is the person that I really learned how to write strong, from whom I learned how to write strong copy.
Okay.
And he is the person who taught me the structure and the framework, who showed me that there are different ways to pique curiosity and the right cadence and tempo in which to engage your audience so as to have the most likely yes. And that's really important. And because I had been fairly successful before I was introduced to him and before I started learning directly from him, and it was really his perspective on how to approach copywriting, his pastor framework, which I've used ever since then to make enough money to support my family of 10. And, we've got 4 in college right now. Yes, I had one just graduate and I have another one going in. So I guess technically I still have 4 in college right now. It's it's great. And it's interesting how something so small as a particular rubric can have such a big impact, because I have a vast portfolio of things that I have written and had been paid for, but it wasn't until I learned specifically how to engage in strong classic direct response copy, that things really changed for me and for my business.
Yeah. Wow. Very awesome. Yeah, Ray, how long has Ray, I mean, when you and I first met and you brought up Ray and you were asking me, do you know of Ray? I'm like, I've heard that name. And then actually he lives in Spokane, Washington, across the state from me and stuff. And
Yeah,
how long has he been doing his thing and training people like that?
forever and ever,
A
amen.
long time.
That's how long he's been doing the things. I don't have a number for you, but I I know, man, I wish I had a concrete date for you, but I don't. I know it's more than 25 years. I can tell you that.
Wow. Wow.
But yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so you mentioned there was somebody else that you want to
Mhm.
honor as well. I want to make sure we give you
Yes.
the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. So the other person, so Ray is one of those philosophical keys, right? He gave me a tool set that dramatically changed how I was able to generate revenue for my family.
Uh-huh.
And the next person is someone who dramatically changed my ability to connect with people and also has been just an incredible resource for me. And her name is Sarah Morrison.
Okay.
And I met Sarah Morrison in January of 2019. So I was already fairly established in the marketing world and fairly established as a direct response copywriter. And when I was introduced to her, I was really excited because she was also a mom of many who drove primary revenue for her family. And there are lots of us out there, but we're not so easy to find all the time. And so I knew that there were a lot of elements that we shared in common, but more importantly, we have the opportunity to look out for each other and also encourage each other in business. And specifically for our conversation, she has introduced me to easily over 6 figures worth of revenue since that time because of the introductions and the relationships that she had and the connections that she was able to make for me and for my business.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Wow. Wow. So I want to like you to think about as an experience where you personally um you got to make a really substantial impact and maybe even in the moment, maybe it even surprised you a little bit. But you also know that that would have never been possible if not for your relationship with either Ray or Sarah. What is an example of something like that, Juliana?
Yeah. So um, I don't know if we talked about this earlier, but my father was born and raised in Lahaina on Maui, and I
Okay.
have a
I
lot of
love going to
family there.
Lahaina. That's
Yes,
such a
yes,
beautiful spot.
it is. It is. And unfortunately, in
I,
2023, there were devastating fires.
yes, I have not been there since the fire. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was something that completely was like I don't know that anybody could have ever imagined that
Yeah.
that type of catastrophe could happen and the breadth and scope of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how this connects specifically to Ray is um, in the aftermath of those fires, I had multiple people in my family that were directly impacted. I think we counted up and we had 26 people that were unhoused because they lost homes and fires and jobs impacted. It was devastating personally for me and my family and also devastating for the community. And there is a charity that I do a lot of work with that also does disaster relief. And because of my relationship with them, I was able to go to Maui in September of that year and help with relief efforts and help act as a liaison between some of the smaller local 501c3s and some national 501c3s that needed an opportunity to make good, reputable connections on the ground. And how Ray impacted that is I wrote a lot of emails and I had a lot of conversations. And because of what I've learned through direct response copy, specifically from Ray, because I learned that I'm not looking for necessarily the big yes, I want to stack little yeses in order to get where we needed to go. I was able to successfully navigate a portion of that relief effort by getting food product to those that were in need, by opening up channels with regards to cleanup efforts, with housing efforts, with medical efforts, because I could be a conduit through, and I don't know if translation services is the right way to put it, but to be a link from someone who had not only the appropriate connections, but the appropriate way to frame the conversation, both from a cultural perspective and also from a marketing perspective, where we look for those little yeses so that we could move a significant amount of aid to people directly to people who needed it. And
Yeah.
that was huge.
Wow. Wow. That is an awesome story, Juliana. And that is an inspiring story right there. And what a great example of making a really big impact. And I'm sure there were a lot of people that maybe they knew what you did, maybe they didn't know the hand that you played and the role that you played in all that, but yet I'm sure they were incredibly grateful that they got the aid, that they so desperately needed at that point in time. Because man, I know a lot of people were hurting because of that.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's complicated because it's in the middle of the ocean. Like
yeah,
after Hurricane Katrina, you can truck down resources from other places in the United
yeah,
States.
yeah,
And there's an entire level of logistics in helping, you know, with the next chapter of Lahaina's recovery.
yeah, yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today, Juliana, and for anybody that's listening right now and going, man, Kev, I really appreciate Juliana. I love how she shows up and stuff. And maybe there's people listening too that like have heard some of the things you shared and are thinking, man, you know what? I think maybe a conversation with her might be valuable. And so for anybody that would like to connect with you, is there any websites, any resources that we can share with them?
Yes, absolutely. So they can find me at mercerfranklin.com.
Okay. Okay.
And that is the name of my business.
Okay.
And the reason why I picked that, well, trying to find julianastachurski.com just doesn't work for a lot of people. It's not exactly one of those easy to remember things, but I hope Mercer Franklin is reasonably spellable, that people can get that into the URL bar, which is great. But also it's a, we moved from Mercer Island in Washington to Franklin, Tennessee. So it's a combining of both of those significant places in our lives. So if you find me at
Gotcha.
yeah, if you come find me at mercerfranklin.com, that is the best way to be in touch with me. I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook. You can find me there as well if you need. But yeah, I'd be happy to chat, answer questions. I love having conversations. I like to talk. So this
Yeah.
is great.
Awesome. Awesome. Any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap, Juliana?
I think the most important thing to share is when it comes to working towards those big goals, it's about the little yes. It's about stacking little wins. It's about remembering to trust the process and to work the process and to have an, I like to say, an eager patience so that we don't rush things, but at the same time, making sure that we have gas on the pedal to keep things moving.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, once again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. I am really excited to get this out there and share it with a lot of other entrepreneurs. So thanks so much, Juliana.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
You're so welcome.